4 ways to handle mixed signals in insecure relationships. Generally speaking, how do we navigate the muddy waters of mixed signals in insecure relationships? Well, in a word, boundaries. So much confusion around what boundaries are and how do we uphold them. Because knowing and honoring your boundaries involves knowing and honoring who you are and what you want. And that's something that a lot of individuals with insecure attachment really struggle to understand about themselves, because they've come from either an enmeshed family system or a family system in which there was dismissal and neglect, or both. And so there are 4 tips for sorting through the confusion, or here are 4 tips for sorting through the confusion so that you can ultimately stand sovereign within yourself, knowing that you will be fine regardless of what happens in this particular relationship. So the first step is really understanding that your boundaries is the equivalent of figuring out what you need and want. And if that's too hard at first, figuring out what you don't want and looking at the opposite of that can help. So what doesn't feel good to you in a relationship? What feelings or behaviors do you wish would replace that condition? I would recommend that don't just think about it, write it down, draw it out, concretize it in some fashion, and voila, you have started to establish some of your boundaries. And so as you live your life and you continue to add to this list, I recommend that you keep it with you. And that will really help you to remain in touch with who you are and what you really want. And hopefully that inspires you to tolerate less and less the things that are unhealthy or unwanted, and help you to identify the mixed signals that you may be receiving much more quickly and efficiently. The second thing is be the braver partner. You want to know where the relationship is going? Decide where you want it to go first. You want to know what someone is feeling? Decide how you're feeling first and create space for the other person's feelings without judgment. You want to see a change in your circumstances or in your relationship? Then, I hate to be cliche, but be the change you want to see. Your partner will either fall in line or they will fall away. And if that happens, the best thing that you can do, that which is in alignment with your highest good, is to let them go. Because being brave doesn't mean that you are without fear. In fact, if you weren't at least a little bit afraid, then it wouldn't be brave, would it? And being brave doesn't mean that you will always be rewarded with the outcome that you desired in the short term, but I will guarantee you, you will be rewarded in the long term. Now, the third thing is stop trying to organize someone else's emotional self or go digging around trying to overanalyze and figure out whatever their truth might be. So often, we operate from a place of perceived potential. We hold on to things, people, places, jobs, identities that no longer serve us because we think there's so much potential in them. I just want to emphasize this. Of course there is. That's a given. Beneath the layers of ego and social conditioning, every being and system originates from a place of pure love and light and was ultimately created to be in service in some fashion. All things stem from source, but how effectively has that potential been realized? So I recommend that you don't make decisions based on a projection or a fantasy that holds you back from the truest expansion of your desires. I recommend that you kind of feel through the fantasy to find the degree of alignment between the intention and the manifestation. So if something hasn't panned out the way it was supposed to, don't be afraid to walk away or tear it down or to quit or to rebuild or to revise, because the potential is always going to be there. That never goes away, but it will never be real in your experience until it is realized. And the only potential that can truly be realized in your experience is your own. And so if you're in a relationship and you're getting mixed signals, that mixed signal is the truth. So you want to pay attention to that dissonance. Don't just pay attention to the thing that you think is the closest to the thing that you want and then decide that that's the real truth of how that person feels. Pay attention to the whole picture. And if there's a significant dissonance, that is the truth. It's the difference between what someone says they want to do and what they actually do. It's not what they actually say or even what they actually do that matters. It's the congruence between the two. And lastly, this is number 4. You want to realize that your preoccupation with solving someone else's problems to try to make you happy is truly an avoidance of your own. And this goes for individuals with all types of insecure attachment styles. So when we tend to project our shit outwards, right, and onto the people that we are closest to us, or that we want to be close to us, because it's easier than confronting it from within ourselves. For example, an open-hearted or anxious partner will ask a gazillion friends and family members to help them interpret a partner's behavior both before and after they actually ask their partner directly for an explanation, because whatever is offered is usually unsatisfactory and inadequate. So they keep asking people around, looking for the answer that they want. That's not paying attention to the truth of the situation. And that is because the hole that we're trying to fill within ourselves is bottomless, so long as we keep looking for something outside of ourselves to fill it. And we have created a mechanism within ourselves that is terrified of diving down deep into that hole. And the obsessive mental and emotional hamster wheel that we have around examining every little minute thing of the relationship tends to generate a momentum that serves as essentially an addictive short-term escape from looking down into that hole. Now, for avoidance, or rolling stones, particularly those that come from enmeshed family backgrounds, it's the uncontrollable guilt, shame, and or compulsion to fix the partner's feelings that creates a fear of engulfment and ultimately leads to a need to run away or put distance between them and a partner. And the avoidant, as much as the rolling stone, as much as the open heart or the anxious person, needs to establish a boundary and hold that boundary for and against people pleasing and projecting fears of over control and enmeshment onto their partners. Because as a partner of someone who may be a rolling stone, you still have every right to express your feelings. And then it's up to the rolling stone to let you have them and not feel so responsible for them that they bolt. You have to be allowed to manage your own feelings. You also have to have the expectation that you're in charge of managing your own feelings. If you enter into a relationship and you implicitly and directly communicate to your partner that it's their job to make you happy, that's going to drive a partner away, particularly a rolling stone. And this is what I think of as, I call it intimacy without responsibility. But it is responsibility. It's responsibility to yourself. And if you can take responsibility for your own feelings in a relationship and you can allow for someone else to be responsible for theirs without having to save them or therapize them into changing their condition so that you can feel better about your condition, that's actually a very wonderfully freeing experience of love.